copywritten production of the Recreation Centers of Sun City Incorporated and is intended for the sole purpose of informing our Recreation Center members. Any duplication, copying, transmission, broadcast, or use, including electronic and social media, is strictly prohibited without the prior written consent from the Recreation Centers of Sun City Incorporated. Thank you for watching.
Okay. If I can have everyone's attention, we'd like to get this first candidate forum started today. So I'd like to welcome you all here. Everybody will have well, I shouldn't say everybody, but there will be opportunities for questions to be asked. Depends on how long things run. So first, after I just tell you guys to be seated, I'd like for you to stand up if you could for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. Okay, so during this meeting, we request that everyone please turn off your cell phones or put them in a vibrate mode to avoid disturbing others. My name is Connie Jo Rickmeyer. I'm the co-chair of the election committee. This is one of two candidate forums. The other will be held in the evening, Wednesday, November 20th, from 6 to 8:30 p.m. For those of you that are still working. We have 6 candidates this year vying for 3 3-year terms and 2 one-year terms. So please silence your phones if you haven't already done so. I would like to introduce the chair of our election committee, Director Karen McAdam. Okay. And then I would like to introduce the board members that we have present today. I know I saw Steve Collins somewhere. Preston Keiss, Director Kat Fimmel, Director Karen McAdam. We also have President Tom Foster, Treasurer Anita Borski, Chris Nettesheim, and I am the Secretary Connie Rickmeyer. Okay. All righty, so election committee members that we have that are present, and if I mispronounce a name, I apologize. We have Tom Marone is going to be our timekeeper. Thank you, Tom. I do not see Jean Buck. Okay, Connie Sherman is here, and Mike Wendell is also here. Okay. All right, so let's go over the basic process and the rules for this forum. We will have opening statements from each candidate. Then I will ask the initial question, and then anyone with a question may come up to the podium and ask your question. Anyone with a second question should wait until everyone that's interested and has a chance to ask their first question, and then if there's time, additional questions will be allowed. Questions may be directed to a specific candidate or to all the candidates to respond. Questions should be straightforward and to the point, no preamble, just get to the questions so that way we can get the answers and get more questions in. The question should be designed to get the candidate's view on how they would function as a board member. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to respond to the question. If questions are asked that are not fair or appropriate, I will withdraw the question or ask that it be reworded accordingly. When questions are asked of all candidates, I will call on them to respond in random order for response. And, if it winds up being where it's the same thing, they can just say ditto. So that way we can continue on and ask additional questions. This forum is scheduled for 2 hours. If the members are finished with their questions early, we'll allow each candidate to give their closing statements, and we will adjourn early. Just so you know, there'll be a 30-minute after the forum for members to visit with the candidates, so you have a chance if you want to corner a candidate and ask a specific question. If we don't get many questions from the floor, I, as co-chair, I have prepared a number of questions that can be asked of the candidates, but I'm hoping you guys have some good questions today. All righty, so let's see here. For the introduction of the candidates, and I'd like announce at this time, I'd like to start with opening statements from your candidates. They will each have 2 minutes. And let's just go in order. So let's start with John, if you would please.
Okay. Hello. Hi, my name is John Brissett. Okay, easiest way to remember my last name is you go with a capital B, small r, capital E, small s, capital S, small e, capital T, small t. You just got the best out of Brissette, okay? So that'll, good way to remember me. I did a military career, went to college in Vermont, and then I did a military career. And in that career, I did a lot of interviewing, if you would, and the opportunity to find out multiple sides to a situation. And I think what I've seen here in Sun City since the last 12 years that I've been here is there's always two sides. One side may be louder than the other, but there's two sides. And I think we all know that there's a happy medium to be met. And for the state of California for almost 15 years, I was an arbitrator and I was a mediator. And the biggest thing I mediated most of the time was grapes, because the producers didn't get paid by the processor. And you had to come to an equal and fair, equitable decision. When we couldn't do that, then we'd go to arbitration, and I would make the decision based on what I had heard. As far as my complete goals here, I think I'm looking more for unity, okay? I'm here to see what I can do to help out, and if there's things I can do, everybody's welcome to let me know, and I'll do what I can. Other than that, I've been able to watch the board the last year a lot in a lot of the different committees, and I can see a lot of progress coming with the board and aiming for good goals for all of us, because many of us here, we have kids that are going to be joining us pretty soon here at Sun City, and I want this to be a good place for all of them. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move the time clock just so it's easier for you guys to see it, and I'm going to slide this back a little bit so it's not obstructing. Hang on.
Did I go over my time?
You're fine.
Oh.
Can everybody see that appropriately? Okay. All right, we're just moving forward. All right, and then he's going to do the same thing we do with board members, okay? Sorry about that. Okay, Tom, your opening statement.
All right, my name is Tom Foster, and my wife and I have been in Sun City since 2006, or we've owned a home since 2006. We've been here full-time since 2012. I was appointed to fill an unexpired term on the board in March of 2024, and was elected president of the board in September of 2024. I've served on golf greens committees, on the finance and budget committee, the long-range planning committee, the insurance committee, and the investments commission. Since my term is going to expire at the end of 2024, I'm running here to try to earn a 1 or 3 year term to stay on the board. My work experience, I've spent 5 years teaching economics and corporate finance at the collegiate level. Spent 5 years as a public utility regulator back in Iowa. I spent approximately 32 years, though, managing institutional investment portfolios for pension plans, 401k plans, post-retirement medical plans, and other institutional portfolios. The rec centers of Sun City have a mission and values and vision statement, and I just wanted to touch on a couple of those here in this opening statement. And the mission is to maintain a financially sustainable corporation which provides our members with a wide range of high-quality amenities, recreational opportunities, and social activities to enhance each participating member's sense of well-being and purpose. And we provide a lot of amenities here, so we've done, I think, a pretty good job at that end. But we've also spent a lot of time on the financially sustainable portion of that mission statement.
Your time.
Really?
Yeah, that's 2 minutes goes quick. It's not 3.
All right.
Okay, Anita?
Hi, my name is Anita Borski, and I'm currently serving on the board and running for re-election. I came to Sun City in 2008. My husband and I purchased a home here, and we were snowbirds for several years. In 2019, we decided to make the permanent move from Wisconsin and have been here ever since. My background was I worked at a university in Wisconsin, University of Wisconsin-Stevens Point. I was the Director of Revenue, Liability, and Parking Services. That obviously entailed managing the parking department. We had well over 5,000 spaces on campus. I reviewed all contracts, not all contracts, all contracts except personnel for liability issues. And I was in charge of all of revenue that came on campus. That included the accounts receivable department, all the tuition, room, board, library fines, organizations, revenue, anything that you could possibly come up with. Currently, I'm the treasurer on the board, and I serve on the club's organization committee, and I'm the VP of the foundation at this point. And I'm also the liaison to Sun City Can and to the museum. Earlier this year, I was on the finance committee, and then Tom came and I gave him my chair and moved on to something else. And I was on the communication committee as well. I have belonged to several clubs in Sun City, but I've pretty much given them all up but one while I've been on the board, due a lot to the workload, and I stayed in the knitting club, which helps me maintain my sanity, I think. In the future, I'm dedicated to the foundation. I'm hoping we can develop that group into a organization that serves Sun City well, financially and through programs. I'm
2 minutes
done.
ago. 2 minutes ago.
Thank you.
Okay, Chris Nettesheim.
Hi. Bear with me if I cough. I do have cough drops. I apologize. We're second-generation Sun City residents. My in-laws came here in 1987. And when my father-in-law passed in 2012, we purchased the house from my husband's brother and sister. So we've had a home here since 2012, but we have not lived here that long. We moved in 2018, and I am one of the newer resident members that are moving into Sun City prior to retirement and are working professionally. My degree background is in psychology and sociology. And of course, I took that and moved into information technology and started working with computers because that makes sense, right? It really worked well for me because I was able to take those skills and apply it to the job I was doing with information technology. My focus has been on, as a member of the technology committee, and since I was appointed to the board in March, I retired on March 1st, and I was appointed to the board the beginning of April, has been to focus on making sure that we have sustainable technology that meets the needs of the current members and the needs of the future members. That being said, I also care that we communicate well, and that, to me, it's very important that we listen. And I have been listening. It may not seem like that sometimes, but I have been listening. I feel that it's very important that we continue to move forward and sustain Sun City with the wonderful amenities we have, while carefully listening to our members and set our course based on what is best for all and what is best for the many. Thank you.
Okay. All right, Mr. Gray.
Thank you, and my name is Rick Gray, as you know. My wife and I, Lisa, moved here in 2006. My wife, Lisa, is in the audience, and for full disclosure, she's also the GM of the Sun City Homeowners Association. For fullest disclosure, she's also definitely the better half. My first goal is to not hear that bell. And I've already told Tom that I'm a recovering politician, so I have a tendency to bloviate. So I'll just say that I've been on the board of this Homeowners Association, was termed out several times, and yet I got back on. I was part of the Sun City Taxpayer Association. When we started CAN, I was on the CAN board, Sun City Community Assistance Network. I'm currently also on the board of the Northwest Valley Chamber of Commerce. My goal and what I bring, I think, is my experience with the legislature, because I served my community down at the legislature for 10 years. There's been a lot of interesting learning experiences down there, and I hope to bring those to the table here, including hearing stakeholders. I think that's a top priority, and getting feedback, and knowing that I don't have all the answers, so I need to ask a lot of questions and learn a lot. So that's my goal, and again, I've worked to make my community protected and better. That'll be my goal on the board also. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Mike Egge.
Hi, my name is Mike Egge. I'm a previous board member. I served from 2020 through 2022. My platform when I ran previously was communication. I founded the Sun City in Focus Committee in 2020 with the help of people like Stella Vaness, and I see Darla sitting here, and really worked hard to try to help put the word out, help the management and the board communicate better with the community. And for the past 2 years, sitting on the sideline, I just feel like things have kind of fallen back into the way things were previous to my time on the board. So I just felt it was necessary to try to jump back in and finish the job of trying to help everybody get on the same page. And I know some of the decisions that have to be made are quite arduous, and sometimes it's hard to get everybody to listen to one another. So I'm running again, same platform, try to improve communications. Certainly want to get involved in some of the decision-making. I was involved in the first round of design for Mountain View, and based on what the members and the community wanted, and somehow that got all derailed, and here we are 5 years later, and we're no further along in the finalizing of a plan than we were, again, 5 years ago. So that's what I'm all about, and that's why I'm here, and hope to get elected and continue the mission. Thank you.
Thank you all. Okay, so I would like to start out with the opening question, kind of a icebreaker for you guys. And we're gonna reverse the order. So Mike, you'll start first and we'll end with John. And the question is, what can each of you contribute from your background and work experience that will best benefit the board and the work that it must do? And feel free to ask that to be repeated at any time.
No, I think I understand the question. I'm a problem solver. I'm really good at getting people together in a room and listening to all sides, examining the facts, whether it's a mechanical situation, a personnel situation. So I feel what I can bring to the board is a pretty solid background in problem solving. And I just feel like we've got a lot of issues, a lot of confusion, and if we can just get everybody together in the same room at the same time, maybe we can speed up some of the decision-making processes, reduce some of the rumors and some of the confusion that starts flying around, and it seems to just kind of work as a blockade for us to be able to get anything accomplished.
Thank you. Okay, Rick?
Yeah, I think my legislative experience is probably going to come in very handy, because down there you have the two parties, what I call the Bloods and the Crips. You got the Reds and the Blues. Interestingly, the majority of our bills, at least 80%, 80 to 90% of our bills were bipartisan. You never hear that on the news because it doesn't draw eyeballs and attention. But down there, you work together with people. If there's an issue that needs to be addressed, you get people from other sides. When you listen to a lobbyist that comes in and tells you all of the benefits of this, you have to ask, and I always did, what's the other side say? What's the alternative? You have to get a consensus and get all the information to get a right decision. Otherwise, you're just following somebody else's particular view. And so I think that's one of the highlights that, for me, was a good learning experience. And that's one of the things I bring to the table. That, and when we had major issues, we brought stakeholders in to make sure we just didn't hear the lobbyists, we heard the people that were actually involved. You've got to get all the information if you're going to make the best decision.
Thank you. Chris?
So my background is in IT. However, I was not what you would call a computer scientist or an engineer per se. I was a software tester. One of the things that software testers have to do is they have to work with everybody else on the project and deliver difficult news at times, because you find something critically wrong with the design of a product, and it may have to go to back to the drawing board. So we do, as software testers, we do have the responsibility of having to deliver difficult news and then try to identify the problem, identify a solution for the problem through building consensus that this is the right thing to do. So that is something I have done for 18 years. On top of that, I was able to take everything I learned in psychology and sociology and apply it in that space, so that we had people who learned to actually talk to each other and listen. So building consensus, problem solving, building rapport and good communication. I was blessed by able to learn all of the technologies as I was doing that. So I also have a solid background in technology and where we should go and how we should think about our technology as we are moving forward, so that we have the right balance, that we're meeting the needs of the people that are in Sun City today, but the people that are moving in, because the Gen Xers, the 55 to 60-year-olds, the very top, they're moving in today. They have specific needs as well, and we still want to maintain a vibrant, attractive community for them. But we need to meet the needs of our members as well. So that's what I can bring to the table, and I hopefully have brought to the table to a certain extent since I've been on the board. Thank you.
Thank you. Anita?
Well, my college degree goes back to, I majored in communications and emphasized public relations and corporate communications. So I've been out, I've done marketing, I've developed a form that's being used by my university to this day to help do performance evaluations. So I've got some experience on working with different groups. When I worked at the university, the students named me the queen of everything, and I have a little trophy they gave me for that. If students had problems, they usually came to me, and I could get them to the right place, the right person to get their problem solved. And I called ahead, and sometimes students didn't relate what they needed, but we called ahead and everybody was ready, and they got their problems solved. I've had a lot of experience in the financial field, in banking, accounting, collections, cash handling. I spent 35 years doing that, and I think I've got a pretty good background. When I worked at the university, I was involved in hiring a chancellor. I was involved in developing the freshman orientation program. So when students came on campus with their parents, they knew what to expect when they got there. I served on several committees, campus-wide, statewide. I've worked with governors, legislators. I worked on a board for a Midwest group of college and university business officers. And I served a position in the National Association of College and Business Officers. So I've got quite a background on dealing with a lot of different people on a lot of different problems and come up with a lot of different solutions. Thank you.
Thank you. Tom?
Well, not to be redundant, but similar to what the others have expressed, going back to some of those mission and values, we do have a value that's related to teamwork. And that statement says that we value teamwork and each person's contribution to the community. So in the spirit of that teamwork statement, I ask all of us to not be part of the problem, as has been expressed by others here, but accept the challenge to pull together as a community and be part of the solution. But more specifically, given my academic background and business experience, I believe that I can bring financial discipline to the RCSC budget process, and I think we've done that. Prudent spending of our capital funds, and we're in the process of implementing that. And frankly, some common sense to decision-making. So that would be my response to your question, Connie.
Okay, thank you. John?
It was a lot easier when I was first, okay? They have basically said kind of what I said to begin with. You know, my life has been in mediation, arbitration, interviewing, interrogating, and getting people together and getting to work. And this is a great community. I moved here because it's a great community, and I think my biggest asset, okay, would be to, you know, support. Everybody down up here on this stage, I think, are excellent people. And if they're all being 100% honest and they truly want to make it work, I think we can make it work with your help from the community. And that's about all I've got to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so now it's the time, if you are ready with some questions, to turn the questions over to the members of the audience. So anyone on the floor can ask a question. You don't have to state your name or your member number. Okay, we're going to start off with Steve. All right, Steve, go ahead, and just remember, with regards to what we talked about, the question should be straightforward and to the point, no preamble. It's designed, make it so it's designed to get the candidate's view on how they would function as a board member. Go ahead, Steve.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for doing this. You're going to find out it's not as much fun as it looks up there. My question is simply, once you're up there and you're on the board, you are going to get pulled from every direction by every club and everything. And how are you going to decide what's right for the room that gets 100 people or the 32,000 in the community? Thank you.
Okay, so let's see here. We're going to mix up a little bit as far as people starting. So Rick, you get first shot at answering that one.
I've run most of my adult life by the golden rule, treat others the way I'd want to be treated. I also believe very strongly, and again, being in politics, I've seen it very frequently, you can get a very vocal minority that push very hard. And if you just cater to that vocal minority, they will applaud you, they will rave over you, but you don't benefit the whole. My view is, if you're going to live with integrity, you've got to look at the community. What's good for the whole community? And again, we've got people everywhere from multimillionaires to usually they're widowed ladies living on less than $1,000 a month. We have to be sensitive and aware of that. So again, my view is what's best, what's right for the whole community, and not just the most vocal.
Thank you. Okay, and the second person to answer that question is Tom.
Okay.
I'm trying to do it random.
I'm not sure I like being identified as random, but that's okay.
Random order.
I agree with what Rick said about, you know, you need to take into consideration what's best overall. You are certainly going to hear from the vocal community of perhaps those who are whose ox is being gored, so to speak, by whatever the particular issue is. And so you want to listen to that, but you do want to take into account what's best overall, because you do have a fiduciary responsibility. And I kind of, while the materials that we see as board members say we have a fiduciary responsibility to the corporation, I kind of twist that a little bit and say I have more of a fiduciary responsibility to the membership. I need to do what's in the best interest of the membership as a whole. But at the same time, if you're going to, you know, be able to really serve the membership well, you were appointed or elected to use your head, to apply common sense, and to sometimes you got to do what you believe is the right thing. And I think so you have to kind of weigh all of those together. And sometimes that's what you're here for, is listen to your gut, do what you think is the best thing for everyone, and let the chips fall where they may.
Is that it, Tom?
That's it.
Thank you very much. Okay, John?
Thank you, Steve. It is a great question, because I've sat back there and watched one person on the board vote against 8. I've seen them go 6 and 3. And everybody's doing what they think basically is the right thing and the most honest thing to do. And my whole thing is the integrity of it. You have to find out both sides. There are 2 sides of the story, not necessarily what either one is saying. And you have to dig into it, and Tom is right on. You have to keep your fiduciary thought in there that we can't just spend money because we want to. We have to have a check and balance, and that is you folks out there. And I don't know, it's just one of those things that's, you got to do what your gut says, and you're not going to make everybody happy, and I wish I could, but when I was doing mediations, I knew walking into it I wasn't going to make everybody happy, and most of the times I made both sides unhappy. Okay, because we found where was a median place we could work. And that's, I was an adjunct professor for over 20 years, and new students coming into the class, always wanted to know, why am I the teacher? I used to tell them, because I've got more experience than you. Well, in this particular one, I don't have a lot of experience in doing this particular job, but I sure know I've watched it for the last year real closely, and I think we're going the right way. And I think, yeah, Steve, we just got to figure out exactly what we think is right, and if we find out later it's wrong, we have to be able to come back and do something to fix it. Okay? And thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, Mike?
Okay, hopefully this won't be a totally unpopular answer. As a board member, my understanding and belief is that my primary duty, especially the fiduciary duty, is to the corporation. We're elected by the members, but we're here to represent the corporation. When I served on the board before, the corporation was valued at somewhere near $150 million. So where it gets a little tough sometimes, per Steve's question, yeah, you get a group of 400 or 500 people coming to you and they want some specific thing or a space. The first thing I would ask myself as a board member is, how does it affect the corporation? If it bankrupts the corporation, if it turns us upside down and we can't pay our bills, then maybe you've got to make the tough decision and go back to that group and say, not today, at least not with RCSC dollars. Maybe we can find another way to fundraise some money. But at the end of the day, we have to protect the mothership, and that is the corporation. That is what makes us what we are and who we are. And I believe that's what Dale Webb's vision is, for us to be able to stand on our own 2 feet and govern ourselves. But yeah, it is hard to please everybody, and it's very, very difficult to balance everything every day. I know sometimes we put a lot of load on the general manager's shoulders because we task him with a lot of things that pulls a lot of people and a lot of resources in different directions. But that would be my answer, is you start by working to preserve and to enforce the corporation, and then how do we best serve the members from there?
Thank you, Mike. Anita?
Well, when I was elected to the board, I swore an oath to the corporation that I would be fiduciary responsibility, have fiduciary responsibility. In my mind, I also swore an oath to the members, and that is that I treat you fairly and honestly, and I listen to you. I think my job is to provide diverse opportunities, make sure we stay financially strong, and although I know I can't make everybody happy, I'll do my best. I have no personal agenda. I quit all my clubs just for that reason. I take that back. Maybe I do have a personal agenda, and that's the foundation. And the reason for that is I want to make sure our needy citizens, members, are helped when they need to be helped. And I want our foundation to develop into something where we can create some much-needed money to fund some of our programs and pay for some of the things we would like and we want to do. And I think that's a good avenue for us to do, and I will be spending time on that. So I guess I do have a personal agenda. Other than that, I think I'm pretty open to anything. I try to weigh things through. What's the good part? What's the bad part? What's it going to cost us? What can we afford? And who am I serving? Am I serving 3 people that have a major problem, or am I serving 300? Thank you.
Thank you. And Chris?
So Del Webb created an interesting model here in Sun City. He set up, or they created a board that has a fiduciary responsibility to the corporation. At the same time, they set up a self-governance model where the members had consistent and constant input and voting rights to determine what that board did. So it's a very interesting place that I often find myself in, doing what's right for the corporation, because the truth of the matter is, without the members, the corporation doesn't exist. We can say all day long that we're supporting the corporation, but without the members paying their assessments every year, the corporation has no funds to operate. So the members are a key and integral part of who and what the corporation is, in my opinion. I do believe that when it comes to difficult decisions, you have to use your knowledge that you bring to the table. You have to listen to what you are hearing from the corporation via the general manager or his senior leaders, and you have to listen to the members, because underpinning everything in our governance system are the members. And then you have to make the best decision. I was recently told that, well, people, you must feel powerful sitting on the board. I have never felt so powerless, because when I sit here, the sense of responsibility and the amount of time I really think about every vote that I make and trying to do what's best for the majority of Sun City residents and members is very difficult at times. I'm sure you guys have seen me kind of go, and it's because I'm trying to weigh everything. At the last minute, did I hear anything new that would change my opinion? So I think doing what's right for the corporation fiduciarily and doing what's right for the members kind of goes hand in hand, in my opinion.
Boy, that bell doesn't work well, does it? There you go. Okay. All right. Any additional questions?
Yeah, hi, I'm Tom Swenson. I'm with Sun City Players. We've been invoking Del Webb, and one of his great wishes was for a theater to be built, a performing arts center to be built.
No preamble.
Oh,
Question.
I didn't say that. How do you feel about honoring commitments previous boards have met? And when do you feel it's your duty to put roadblocks or to stop previous projects that have already been approved?
I kind of think, Tom, you need to rephrase that. Karen? Are you, that's okay?
I thought that was clear.
I just seemed like it was like a 3-part question, so.
No.
Okay.
Do you
All right.
honor previous commitments or not?
Okay. All right. So this round, Anita, you're first.
Okay. Tom, thank you. My commitment to prior boards. I think projects that have been developed and are working and are moving along, I can't think of a reason right now why I would stop something like that. If we're spending money and are moving along well and things are going to be a benefit to this community, I would go along with that. As far as changing things, I'm going to use the theater as an example. We had a $40 million theater that we couldn't afford. And I did not feel one bit guilty about stopping that design. It was redesigned, or was proposed to be redesigned, and we made a commitment to do that, and I'm following that commitment. I think that is one area in Sun City that we're sorely lacking. We have great sports facilities, we have great clubs, we've got great pools and bowling and all the other things, but we've neglected the arts. And I think it's time for the arts to have something that they want and need, and the community wants and needs. I realize there are people that don't think it's necessary, and that's fine. I respect their opinion. But I will support the theater in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. John?
I think some people are never going to believe what the board says, no matter what we say, because the rumors outweigh the facts a lot of times. And sometimes things have to be changed. Granted, it started 20 years ago or whatever, but if you look at when we first Del Webb opened, there weren't any pickleball courts either. Okay, things change, times change. And sometimes if we're going to do our job correctly and keep this community going, you're going to have to make that tough decision. Okay, if it is to support the fine arts and do that and it looks right, then you do it. If you can't do it here and you have to do it somewhere else, then you move it. But you have to be flexible. There's no way you can be concrete. You've got to be flexible and try to work through it. And I'm sure everybody in your lives have had things change from day to day, totally unexpected. So what Del Webb saw and started was great. We just have to try to keep it going, and if it means changing something that should have started 30 years ago, or 20 years ago, or 10 years ago, well, we'll have to discuss it, but the only biggest part, I think we have to make sure all you people know why. That you need to be told publicly why the change is going to be made. And I think that's part of the problem. We need more people like you coming out and showing up and hearing both sides. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Mike?
Well, to answer the question, I fully believe in fulfilling the commitments from prior boards. I just heard a comment about a $40 million theater. That's kind of ironic because when I approved, one of several board members that approved the Mountain View project, I believe it was 2021, we were guesstimating $40 million for the entire project. Somewhere around 10, 12 million of that was going to be the theater. So I don't know. I've sat here for the last several years and just keep hearing this number grow and grow. So to the point, I think the theater people have waited long enough. When I was on the board, I was being told it was something like 27 years that they had been promised a theater, and then Grand got put in front of them, and all these other things just keep shoveling around, and we don't have the money, and then we go spend money somewhere else. So we've got to be reasonable, we got to be practical, we got to put it in the right place. We can't overspend, but we've made commitments to the members, since several board members think that the members come first. So, okay, if we go with that premise, then why has the theater group waited 27 years for a theater? So we need to work through that and develop a plan, figure out a good location for the theater, and get the shovels out and start breaking ground.
Thank you, Mike. Rick?
Yeah, I'm always a little hesitant when it comes to hypotheticals, because I don't know what plan went before. I have read about the M, and it's like, well, that seemed like there was consensus there, and why was that not moved on? So to me, it comes down to, again, kind of like what Mike said, we have to take care of what's financially, and I think John mentioned too, what's financially capable, what we're capable of. But with respect to that, I'm not going to just arbitrarily say, well, if somebody made a decision previously, if our economics have changed, then we may need to adjust. But again, there was, and I'm trying to get information on that, what that plan was before that was kind of sidestepped compared to what we're looking at now. But I think for me, it's always, you have to have all the facts before you and then make that decision based on those facts. And the facts of 5 years ago are not going to necessarily financially be the same facts as what we have now. But again, if there's consensus, and to go back to the corporation, when you've got a business, you've got a corporation, but that corporation is made up of stockholders. We don't have stocks at the RCSC, but we have stakeholders, and you are the stakeholders. And so when we serve the corporation, we really should be serving the stakeholders, as Chris talked about. So I think, again, you have to pull all that together and say, what is the most beneficial way moving forward with the situation we have now and the needs we have now?
Thank you. Chris?
So our articles of incorporation actually mention a theater. That was the first thing I noticed when I joined the board and I read the articles of incorporation. It's right there that a theater is mentioned. Right from the get-go, Del Webb planned on having some kind of cultural asset for us to participate in. So when I look at that and I go back to the articles of incorporation, it is clearly in support of having some kind of theater. It's mentioned, just like the libraries were mentioned. With regard to, and I think the premise was, do you honor past boards' decisions or not, was the primary premise of the question. My answer would be, it depends on what the circumstances are when you get to the point where you might have to change your decision, where you're at in the project, because certainly I would not agree that if we had walls going up for a PAC in the middle of next to the softball field, I'm just going to throw that out there as a site, right? If we had walls going up next to the softball field, it does not make sense that any future board or current board would stop that from happening. That's clearly not good fiduciary responsibility. However, if you get to the point where it comes forward and there are other options that outweigh the benefits of past options, then you may want to reconsider. And that goes back to hypotheticals. It depends on the specific circumstances. For me, when I joined the board, the option that was on the table from the current board, and as far as I knew, the past board, was what was being presented to me. So that's what I was dealing with.
Thank you, Chris. Okay, Tom.
Well, I liked part of Chris's answer there where she struck the nerve, at least to me, of what are your options at the time that you need to revisit this decision. So is it possible that a prior board's decision might be reversed by a current board? And I think the answer is it certainly could happen given what the options are at that particular point in time. But it may just as easily be that you support that. And remember when we talked about, or at least when I was talking a little bit about that mission statement, part of that was that we were to provide a wide range of high-quality amenities. I think that kind of fits in that definition. So it at least meets some of the initial criteria of would you support that previous board's decision today? And so, okay, let's take the next step now. When, where, and is it financially feasible? And if it meets all of those subsequent criteria, then I think you move forward. But that's kind of where we are now with that particular decision. While there is some rumblings of, do we really need this, I think that decision is largely been made. Doesn't mean the current board wouldn't jump past that, but it's kind of more of a when and where, and are we financially able to take care of that? So that would be my response.
Thank you. Okay, any other questions from the, okay. Ma'am, hold on just a second. Ma'am, if you want to come up here so that way we know you're next, that would be wonderful.
Or, he's next. Okay.
You want?
Oh, you're after him, okay, all right. So 1, 2, maybe 3. Okay, you guys got it? All right then. Your question, sir.
Okay, candidates, glad you're here. My question is, what is your vision and what are your tactics going forward to raise Sun City as a community, not just as a corporation, but as a community in the ongoing competition that exists in 55-plus communities to attract new residents and retain the existing residents that are here? So specifically, I'd like to hear your vision and then what tactics you have outside of the corporation, specifically to elevate the 85351 zip code.
In 2 minutes, okay. Ambitious. Chris, you get to tackle that one first.
Thank you for that.
Chris, yeah, Chris gets.
You said Rick.
No, Chris, I'm trying to even it out, so Chris is next.
Okay, so this one's actually relatively easy for me because I've been thinking about it since I moved here in 2018. What do I find on the young end of the scale? I'm only 66. I was less than that, 5, 6 years ago, I was 60. What do I find that I would like to see here that I think would be more attractive to people as they are looking to retire in the future? So I would like to build a sense of community through community spaces, social spaces that allow us to come together as a community, because fewer and fewer of us are meeting our neighbors. Our lives are such that we're less involved within our small neighborhoods in many places. And I would like to see us, as we're looking to the future, to make changes to our facilities, changes to what we can control. I would like to see us think about community spaces, social spaces where people can come together and can socialize and meet, to have technology that allows us to connect more easily, allows us to communicate more easily. I would like to see an RCSC that actually maintains the current for the people that are here that aren't wanting to move forward and change, but providing those new things. So as we're looking at the new redoing facilities, looking to, are we adding social spaces? Are we building a community environment, a community mentality into that? So I think one of the things that you will see is many of the younger people are looking for that. They're absolutely looking for that.
Thank you very much. Okay, Mike, your second.
Well, to touch on what Chris just mentioned, I'm a big advocate of improving our technology, hence my harping all the time about communication. We live in a world where it's pretty easy to communicate, and seems like nobody ever knows what's going on. My vision of Sun City in the future is more social spaces, walking paths, bike paths. Obviously, we got to take care of those people that are aging here in the community, and hopefully the Sun City Foundation can expand into some different programs to help those people. And at the same time, I think one of the responsibilities of the board is to work diligently to make Sun City a desirable place to be. I'd like to see a waiting list for people wanting to get in, because this is where everybody wants to be. Conversely, obviously, we've got to make sure we keep our budgets balanced and we keep ourselves healthy. We're not allowed to borrow money, so we got to pay our way as we go. But one of the things we can do to help the community grow is to make it more desirable to especially the younger people that are still working and moving our way.
Thank you. Rick?
Well, thank you. I will say that as I've gone through our corporate documents, I noticed that our vision is to be the best 55-plus community. in the nation. We want to excel. To be honest with you, that's not my goal, so I'll be blunt. I want to be the best community that we can be. I think Chris had mentioned some of the trails. We spent a lot of time and effort to get the ASU survey, and there's a lot of great things in there that our community has said they want. And a lot of them are not expensive to do. So we can do that and improve without adding a whole bunch of cost. Not that we won't have things that cost to go back to the theater, but what's the best community that we can be with the situation that we're in? And one little caveat is I noticed looking at our long-term budget is the PIF fees and the SIP fees, as they're projected to be going up, that can have a negative consequence on being the best, because if somebody wants to move in, or say you want to sell your house, if they're looking at, I gotta spend an extra 20 grand to get into this community, that can be a draw or a negative, which means you got to lower your house down another 20 grand. So there's a balancing act. So we've got a certain environment that we have. We've got certain conditions that we have. We've got a great community. We just need to make sure that it's like a 8-cylinder engine. Sorry for you people with electric vehicles, but you got an 8-cylinder engine. You want to tune it up till you're getting the max out of that. And I think that's what we can do with Sun City. That's what we should be looking at. We've got so much here. And again, some of the tweaks that would be answers to what our community says they want are not outlandish or expensive to do, and that should be our focus.
Thank you. Tom.
Well, another one of our values, I guess, was to improve our amenities and our infrastructure. And I think, quite honestly, we inherited, or the current board inherited, a large backlog of deferred maintenance. And as people come and look at Sun City versus other 55-plus communities, they may see some facilities that look a little tired. They need a fresh coat of paint, et cetera. So the RCSC has spent about $6 million in 2024 and projected to spend about 6.4 in 2025 to address some of those issues. And you may have seen some of that as you look around the community, in particular the pool decking at Oakmont and Fairway and Lakeview, the Sun Bowl parking lot, and there are a variety of others that are more easier to see. Unfortunately, there's also some things that aren't quite as easy to see, and maybe not quite very sexy, like dehumidifiers at Sundial. But in any event, people had mentioned this ASU study as identifying a variety of things that people were trying to look for as future residents in a 55-plus community. And I think we do need to pay attention to some of those things, the walkways and the social areas and so on and so forth. But again, and I hate to hound too much on that, but unlimited wants, but limited resources. We have to stay within our means, but that doesn't mean we can't try to touch on the most highly desirable things and try to address those as quickly as we can to try to attract the kind of people we're hoping to have in the future in Sun City.
Thank you, Tom. John?
Ironically, I asked some of the people in my neighborhood, what would you like to improve? What would you like to add to Sun City? What would you like? And one lady said, I'd like a swim-up margarita bar at the pool, okay? So people have a lot of different wants. Now, I think the biggest attraction I got for coming here was the cost. This is relatively inexpensive to live. I lived in California, and I moved here when I retired from the state of California, knowing that I'm at least 30% better lifestyle, maybe 50% than I was there. We need to keep, like Tom said and the rest, we need to keep our facilities up. We need to keep our advertising up with the IT, put it out there. People come here all the time looking at houses. You know, your kids come and they go, wow, this is kind of neat. I had friends came to visit from New Hampshire, and they turned around and bought a house, okay, because they liked it that much here. And normally, people in New Hampshire, they go down to Florida. So we have a lot. And I think we just keep improving on what we do have. And if folks out there have an idea that specifically you think would really enhance, that's great. And like they said, the IT, get the word out. You know, I'm sorry, I just feel this is a great community. And we just need to keep it going, keep it affordable, stay within the parameters of what we can do, and keep level heads about us. Thank you.
Thank you. Anita?
Yes, Tom left, and I'm sorry he left. I did misspeak. I didn't mean to say the 40 million was for the theater. It was for Mountain View, and I'm sorry about that. As far as the question now, I agree with Chris. We need community space. Somehow COVID changed the world, and we just don't talk to people like we should. My first home here, I didn't know who lived behind me. It was a lady. That's all I knew. Now the home I'm in, I know everybody on my street. We have a party once a month. We have a ladies' luncheon. We all talk to each other. We have a potluck every month. We need to get back to more of that and talking to the people that live around us. Technology is important. I think that will be a major improvement in our community. The ASU study was a start. It gave us a lot of information that we've acted on some, we need to act on more. We have a long-range planning committee that's open to anyone all of our committees are open to anyone that wants to come in, visit, have input. I think that's very important. As far as rising costs, some of that we just can't control. We can't control inflation, but we can use our money wisely, and I think we were finally in a position where we're doing that. I think we need more volunteers. And we need volunteers with constructive ideas. I'm willing to listen to anybody. If someone wants to have a group session and we're going to talk about the condition of the bowling lanes, I will sit and listen to you. I don't know about bowling lanes, but I could learn real quick, I think. I think we need more member input on positive things, and that's something I would strongly support. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I think, I don't know, is it Dave's turn? Okay, you get the floor, Dave.
As a former board member and you as future board members, there's one decision you're going to have to make every year, which is a cross between the Gordian knot and the sword of Damocles. It's the annual assessments. How will you sell an increase in an annual assessment, or conversely, and this is really wishing, a decrease in the annual assessment to the members when everyone has to pay? You have a lot of people to consider. That's my question.
Okay. Tom, you're first.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Tom.
Well, we just went through that, actually, with the town halls on the budget process. And I think one is it's a open and transparent process where not only is long-range planning involved, but finance, budget, and audit is involved. And frankly, finance, budget, and audit is kind of a driving committee for the annual budget. What happens there is members can come. They can see what's happening. They can have input into what's happening. And when that committee makes its recommendation to the board, that's why we had those town halls where and it wasn't board members who really made that presentation to the membership. It was your friends and neighbors. It was members of those committees who said, look, we've been through this analysis. We see the inflation. We see the costs that are being incurred. We see that we have our largest cost is labor, and sometimes that is just a difficult thing to control. But the point being that you can lay out the budget for folks so that they can see this is what's happened, and there are alternatives. Sometimes you might have to give something up if you want to try to cut that budget, and may or may not want to give those things up. So at the end of the day, it becomes a balancing act of, again, unlimited wants but limited resources, and you have to figure out a way to try to pay for the things that you really value.
Thank you. Chris?
So I agree with what Tom said. We literally just went through that, where we shared with people why the assessment had to go up. And the committees, the two committees, long-range planning and the budget committee, spent a lot of time and many weeks discussing, do we do the increase like this much, or do we leak it in and we are increasing slowly over 3 years, which has the potential to be more painful. So you have to determine what is the right amount, and do we have adequate evidence and data to support that we need to increase it. So that's actually the easier part of it. The easier part is you see that the cost of everything is increasing. You're able to provide the evidence to the membership that it's increasing, our costs are increasing, we have to increase the assessment to cover the cost to maintain our facilities at the level that we want them to be maintained at, or we have to start making difficult decisions about what we don't want, so that if we don't increase the assessment. So that, to me, is actually something we're all used to doing in our day-to-day lives. With regard to decreasing the assessment, that becomes a little bit more difficult, because we all know things go up and never come down, right? Has anybody seen, we keep hearing that inflation is down, but I haven't seen anything go down at the grocery store yet, nor have I seen my 5 ounces come back to my 4 ounce package. So, but what I would say is, for decreasing, you would look, do we have a surplus? Are we maintaining everything at the level we want to maintain and keeping everything in good standing? And then we look at, does it make sense at that point to decrease the assessment? Because I agree we should not be charging more than we need just to build a surplus.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Okay, Anita?
I agree with what everyone said. Increasing a fee is not fun. We've struggled over this budget. We've looked at it. We've penny pinched. We've decided what's important, what's not important, what we don't have control of. We can't control the water prices. We can't control APS. We have things that we must do based on law. We can't control our taxes, but we want to maintain what we have. I don't want to close a golf course. We could. That would make a lot of people unhappy. So I think we've done our best. We've done everything that we could possibly do to keep the cost as low as we can keep it. As I said earlier, maybe the foundation will have an impact on it in the future. I don't know that now. Wouldn't it be great if we got a $6 million water reduction grant? It would be lovely. But we can't base our future on that until it happens. So yes, I agree with everyone that's here, and I think we've really tried very hard. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's see. John?
Well, I think the best you can do on decreasing the assessment is if you don't have to increase it. And that would give people another year to try to know what's going to have to change. But my belief is, having sat in the budget things and listened to them in long-range planning, I can tell you there was a lot of argument back and forth to keep it down. Some people wanted to take, let's make up everything we lost in the last 7 years. Other people took the different road and said, no, let's take a little at a time. And I think the least amount of increase we can do is the best we can do. But until, like everybody has said before me, inflation and water and everything decreases, we couldn't possibly go down. And I think everybody sitting out there knows that. And I don't think there's really anything else I could say that would change your mind, because all I can say is I know they tried this last year to keep as least amount of increases in everything as possible. And I applaud all the people involved, that were many of them from all the different committees, to try to keep it down, and from management. So, thank you.
Thank you. Mike?
Well, to echo most of the comments that have been made here, I mean, the bottom line is we share with the members what our costs are, which I feel like we do a pretty good job of that with our financial reports. None of us can not recognize, I don't believe that we can not recognize that inflation is kind of staring us in the face. Obviously, nothing costs today what it did 5 years ago. So again, it's back to the balancing act. What do you give up in order to not have to raise the assessments? So I feel as long as we direct management to get competitive bids, if we're going to paint something or build something, and really sharpen the pencil, do the very, very best we can, maybe to build an amenity in such a way that it doesn't require as much maintenance in the future as it might have if we weren't building it as, I'm not advocating for green technology, but sometimes we can maybe build something that's not as sophisticated as we might have wanted it to be, because part of the long-term effect is it doesn't cost us as much to maintain it. So, but as far as reducing the assessments, yeah, I mean, until we can figure out a way to reduce our costs, I just don't see where, for now, that's an option.
Thank you, Mike. And Rick?
Yeah, I'd say I pretty much agree with everything that's been said. I think the idea of reducing is kind of out of the picture as I see it, forecasts that I see coming in when I read the Wall Street Journal. I do think, and Mike brought this up, the best thing we can do is when we're bidding and getting contracts done, is to make sure we're getting the best bid at the lowest possible price, to maintain those lower costs. But I think, to be honest, I think the board has done a good job of transparency with letting people know. And the hard reality is, as we all know, costs have gone up. And it's just wishful thinking to think that we can have all these costs go up and not have it impact our rec center any more than it's going to all go up, and it's not going to affect our bottom line, our trips to the grocery store. It's just a fact of life. But I think my perspective as the current board, I think, has been very good at that transparency and letting people know these are our costs, these are the increases. And again, if you've got delayed maintenance, coming from a construction background, this is one of the things we need to be aware of too. Sometimes if you delay that, you're better off to just get it taken care of early, because it may cost you $50,000, say, for a roof repair. But if you delay it for 5 or 10 years, it can cost you $250,000 for a new roof. And so those are the kind of economic decisions that you have to evaluate. But the bottom line is the cost of everything is going up. So it's unfortunate but not surprising that our assessment fees are going to go up too.
Okay, thank you. Cloudy.
Since I came up and sat here, the previous people's questions have addressed mine.
Okay.
So
You're deferring to Claudia?
I'm deferring to her.
Thank you. We appreciate that. Go ahead.
We arm wrestle for the honor.
All right.
This question is for Mike and Rick and John. If you had been a member of the current board when they recently voted to accept the recommendation from the Architecture Committee for the location for the new PAC to be at Lakeview, how would you have voted, and how would you specifically have reached that voting decision?
Claudia, I don't know that they have all the information to be able to answer
They were all at the exchange meeting.
But they haven't been for the previous weeks and months. We can ask them to answer, but, I mean, it's putting them kind of on the spot.
Let me just make a caveat then. If you don't feel like you're equipped to answer the question, just say so.
Fair enough. Okay, she said Mike first, so Mike first.
I would vote absolutely no way to put the PAC at Lakeview. Having served on the board and having understood what the desires were of the theater group, what the PAC needs to be, I don't believe it would ever fit on the little lawn bowling space. I've noticed here lately that they've reduced the size of the PAC to like 10,000 square feet. It used to be 15. I do believe that there are other alternative locations, and if I'm elected to the board, I will work diligently to sway my fellow board members to consider an alternate location.
Okay, thank you. Rick?
One, I want to first say that while I was in the legislature, I was pretty much focused on legislative stuff, and the only things I really focused on, the rec center stuff, were when they had bills that they needed to get passed to protect them, or I should say us, our community, or water area issues where I interfaced with the State Department. So my view is this has raised a lot of questions for me, and I like more information, more understanding. I didn't see, especially when we had hundreds of people here that were opposed to it, my bent is to find out what the whole community is, what's the sense here. And I think that from my take right now and what I've learned and gathered, I think there's better places to put it than on the west side. I would want to do a little more evaluation and discussion, not only with the board, but with stakeholders, to get that input, because sometimes we can kind of get, and I've seen this with groups, is sometimes you kind of, you pull the trigger on something and it's just like, okay, let's just go there. And you're not thinking through all the other options. And it's critical in my mind to look at all the other options, to get all the other views. And, you know, again, I just read in the paper today where they were talking about wanting to have the U.S. Open here all the time. That's flag is a concern, because we could lose that. So I think we can, and I've heard comments about we need to do it now or it won't get done, it won't be done for a decade. Well, you know, as far as I'm concerned, when you do something, you ought to do it right, and do it right the first time. And I don't think you have to take a decade to get something done. You do have to put in the effort, and you do have to do the work, and you do have to draw people in to get full consensus. And what is the best? If we're going to spend that kind of money, we want to make sure we thoroughly vetted everything, and we've listened to all the opposition and come down with the best choice.
Thank you. John?
I liked his answer. I'm kind of with that. I'm not 100% on everything that's going on there. I'm not going to pretend I do. But I, too, have taken time to walk around and see if there's other places available that would, you know, be suitable. I mean, I'm not saying it has to move or it doesn't have to move. But I think the idea of getting together and possibly looking at another location that more people can agree with, because there's going to be people not agreeing with it going anywhere in Sun City. So we have to come to the reality that get as many people on board that at whatever location is picked, we do take the opportunity, like they said, to go around, look at other places for it, because it is a great thing. My neighbor is a member of the fine arts, of acting and all, and she sings, and I've listened to her for about 8 years now, wanting a new facility. So I think all in all, we're on the right road. We just need to keep going, and we need to pursue all the different avenues that are available for the facility. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Okay, next person. Okay.
Mine's a really easy question. I'd like to know, even though Mike listed his, I'd like to know what clubs each of you are a member of, And because we need to be aware of any conflicts of interest that arise at any time during your time on the board if you are elected. I like what Mike, Rick, Chris said about moving forward.
Okay, so you asked your question.
I asked my question.
Yes, so let's
That's
have
my
them.
question.
Let's have them answer.
Because we need, like I said, we need to be aware of there's going to be any conflict of interest.
Okay. All right then, Mike.
Currently, I'm a member of the Vintage Vehicle Club, and I think one of the dance, Rockin' something to the years.
Rocking through the years.
Yeah, sorry, I don't know. I get in trouble because I don't take my
You have that
significant other
listed.
to the dance. But that's
Okay.
it.
Any other ones, Mike?
I can't think of any.
Okay, all right. Rick?
Yeah, I feel a little guilty here because I'm a member of the ukulele club, and I've only went there once, and I haven't been back. But they're a fun group of people, so if you want to have fun. And then also the metal shop, which my wife and I joined, and then I've never been back.
Okay.
So I feel really guilty. Don't tell anybody.
Chris?
So, beginning of the year, I joined the swim club to learn to swim. I went twice. I have never been back. Okay, so I don't consider myself a member of that club. I do not belong to any clubs.
Oh, cool.
Anita?
I mean, not cool, but.
No, why don't you have a seat, ma'am, okay? Ma'am, please have a seat, so, because you're commenting, and you don't need to be commenting. So please have a seat. No, please have a seat. Thank you. Anita?
Okay, as I said, I quit most of my clubs. I had belonged to the Weavers, Aqua Fitness, the Euchre Club for a very short time, when I found that I didn't know enough. I was a member of the Spanish Club, which I also quit because I decided I didn't really want to know Spanish. I went for the benefit of my husband. I was on the Wisconsin committee 1 year. I am currently a member of the Fairway Knitters, and I was on the board of the Friends of the Library, which I resigned from when I was elected to this position. What's up?
Thank you, Anita. Tom?
I think I'm going to easily make it within the 2 minutes because I don't belong to anything. And exactly for that reason that you raised is it might look like a conflict of interest, and the perception is the belief. And so I do not belong to any clubs. I just try to represent everybody as best I can.
Thank you. John?
I was on the posse, however, due for personal medical reasons, I am no longer on the posse. The only other thing I do is I'm currently on the Golf Advisory Committee, which, if I'm elected, I'll have to be off that committee. So, but I have no others that I'm on.
Okay. All right. Next person? Okay, because it was one of you guys.
In my opinion, the board for the last 2 years has been fiscally irresponsible. And I want to know if you agree with that or disagree with it.
Okay. John, let's start with you on that one.
I'm going to have to abstain because I don't know how the boards were for the last 5 or 10 years. I've only seen this current board. You know, but I don't have that history, okay, to answer that for you.
Tom?
Well, I would disagree, I guess. We have spent tremendous amounts of time poring over budgets and expenditures in both that Finance, Budget, and Audit Committee, and then in long-range planning. Long-range planning, we've instituted these business case analysis so that people just can't come and be a squeaky wheel. And by that, I mean that they find someone who can sort of champion their cause and get some money for it. You have to go through a process now where you have to prove or make a case that you deserve some funds for some sort of a long-term improvement in a club's resources, et cetera. On the budget and finance side, that has, I mean, and I believe I've seen you at some of those meetings, so you're aware that it is painstakingly driven through all of those accounts, and bless Kevin McCurdy's heart that he knows where every dime goes. But it takes a lot of time and effort to make sure that every dollar, my money and your money is precious, and every dollar is being spent, we believe, in the most effective way. Thank you.
Thank you. Anita?
I guess I would disagree with you also. I come from a finance background, and I've not been to every finance meeting, but I've been to many, and I've gone through the budget line by line. I have a couple questions which I'm sending to the Finance Committee through one of the members. It's not that I think it's wrong, I just need more clarification as to what it means. I think we are very good at spending money and putting it in places where it needs to be spent, improvements. As I said, there's some things we can't control. I think we're covering well. We're financially stable. We're not going bankrupt. We have money in the bank, and I think we're doing a great job. Thank you.
Thank you. Chris?
So I can't speak to what the board did prior to me being on the board, because other than yourselves, that's all I knew as well. Since I've been on the board, I will tell you, I do not believe I've seen fiscal irresponsibility. To say that, I would have to say that our Budget and Finance Committee and Long Range Planning Committee were responsible. I don't believe that. I think they have done everything they can to ensure that we're fiscally responsible. To say that, I would have to believe that we have not been actively engaged with the general manager in making sure that our funds are spent where they should be spent, when they should be spent, to try and improve our facilities and catch up on the backlog. I have not seen that. So that would be my answer. I have not seen it.
Okay, thank you. Rick?
Yeah, I think John and I are kind of in the same situation because I'm not that familiar. I've heard things about how we've had maintenance issues that have been postponed, which would have been, could have increased our cost. As I said before, I think the budget process that I've looked at with this current budget, I think they've been transparent. They've provided a lot of information. All I can say is moving forward, that's, to me, it's got to be one of the most important things is that transparency. If these are the facts, then you ought to be able to know it as the stakeholders in this corporation. And once people know the facts, then I think there'll be less doubt and concern. I don't know what's happened in the past. I know what should be going on in the future. And I think from the people I've talked to, I think most are in the consensus that that's what we need to do.
Okay, thank you. And Mike?
Well, if you read my little bio, I talk about unnecessary spending. When I served on the board previously, I used to spend every Tuesday afternoon in Bill Cook's office with the board president. And I just felt like myself as a board member was very connected to the day-to-day decisions. Some of these smaller, maybe not so small projects, one of my pet peeves is the desk at Fairway. I mean, how do we spend? I believe had I been sitting in front of Bill Cook at the time and he would have said he wanted to do something like that, it would have been a fairly lengthy conversation. Why would we need to do that way? So not having been in the bowels of the ship the past 2 years, obviously I don't feel like I can speak, super specifically to some of the decisions that have been made, but some of the things I've seen, I say this to people, aren't familiar to me from a process point of view. So I don't think it's fair for me to sit here and say, pick the fly stuff out of the pepper, but at the same time, from a 10,000-foot view looking down, I feel like I've seen a lot of things that have happened, money that's been spent that doesn't coincide with the way I believe things were done in the past when we had a $10 million carry forward assessments for $486. Now granted, pre-inflation dollars, but one of the things I hope to work on is to have a much better understanding, working with the general manager on exactly how some of this money is spent.
Okay, thank you. Next question. Okay, one of you, which one?
Okay, I'll wait.
Okay, so then, did I get it? You're next, and then you're next? Oh, pardon me. Okay, all right. Go ahead with your question, sir.
My name is Jim Wise. My question is, what would you do to avoid the issue that was held at the last board meeting, where a memo comes out and says we're going to vote on X, you're welcome to come, we don't want to hear what you have to say, and you don't get a vote? I'm sure you think there's a process in place, but it's not working.
Okay.
Because people say, why go? They're going to do what they want to do. They've made up their minds.
Okay, you've stated your question. Thank you. All right, let's see here. Rick, you're first.
That kind of goes back as far, for me, as far as that stakeholder meetings. We need to have people open and discussing. It's going to take time to shake people free of the idea that the board's not going to listen to them. And there's no way that whoever you elect is going to be able to just turn the key and make them change their thinking. But having transparency and bringing people in, encouraging them to come in, have a meeting, that's going to be one of my focus. I'm a strong believer in stakeholder meetings. If you got an opinion, let me hear it. I'll take emails, I'll take phone calls. Again, being in the legislature, I've had thousands a day coming into me, so I can handle that. I would rather have more feedback than less, even if they're complaining. I want to hear the complaints, because if you don't get the input, you don't get the right decisions made. So I think, again, the stakeholder process to me is a huge, huge process. And moving forward, and hopefully that'll alleviate some people's view that they can't be heard if we keep telling them, come and tell us your view.
Okay, thank you. Tom?
Well, it's unfortunate that you have that impression. I guess I think the meeting that you were referring to was sort of a procedural meeting where, and it's in our bylaws of how different kinds of meetings that the board can have, and that particular one was intended simply as an informational, to give the membership information. What this architectural firm had gone through their analysis and to inform people of where that was. No, that was not a structure where you could make a lot of comments because they needed to get through their material. However, subsequent to that, there were exchange meetings and board meetings where indeed you had every right to come forward and say something, and believe me, you did. Good for you. That's democracy at work, right? And certainly everyone who was at that meeting got a message, whether you were delivering it from there or whether you were hearing it from the board members. But so I think there was plenty of opportunity both ways for an exchange there, and I don't necessarily think everyone's opinion was made up before that meeting took place, nor do I think you should assume that everyone's mind is made up when they go to next Thursday's meeting and see whether or not they can take the second reading of that particular motion. Don't jump to conclusions, would be my response.
Okay, thank you. Okay, where the heck did I leave off? Sorry. John?
Because, like Tom kind of pointed out, it's kind of a perception that nobody's listening. And I can't speak for the board. I can only know what I saw. And I don't think the two sides were listening to either one. And just maybe a little more of accept both sides, okay? I know as far as the transparency of the board, I know how hard they've worked in the last year and over a year. I'm sorry you feel like your opinion didn't count and nobody cared. I can tell you that if I'm sitting up here, that's not the case at all. Okay, I wouldn't sit here if I didn't care. So I'm not going to try to explain what happened there. Everybody has their own thought, their own perception of what happened and why. But all I'll say is I will do my best to make certain that I understand what you're saying, what you want, and how you want to get there. Because it's just not coming up and say, I want this. Tell me how you want to get there, okay? Some of that responsibility is on you also. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike?
Okay, hot button topic for me, okay? So we had a special session, a motion was made, a motion was voted on. Typically, that would happen at a regular board meeting. Prior to the next board meeting, you would have this thing called a member exchange. So, special session on the 11th, second reading at the board meeting on the 21st, 10 days later. Where was the true opportunity for members that weren't sitting in this room to come to the microphone and speak? So now you're going to vote on this thing, and I understand people can come to the microphone and talk about an item that's on the agenda. Really, in 10 days? So I understand why so many people feel like this is being rammed down their throat. Okay? There isn't a lot of time, so I don't believe procedurally we did things the way maybe they should have been done. And by the way, by show of hands, has anybody seen the email blast with the agenda for Thursday's meeting? As of last night, I didn't get it.
It was sent out?
Oh, it came out today, and it's supposed to come out 7 days before the meeting.
No, it was out. It was out.
Yeah. Okay, I'm just asking because I know a lot of people that are asking me. We found it on the website.
Okay, so I answered the question, please.
So the question is no, I don't agree with the way this has been done at all.
Okay. Okay. Where am I left off? Anita.
Okay, well, first of all, my mind was not made up. I can say that emphatically. As far as the meeting, I'm not sure which meeting you're speaking of. There were 3 meetings involved in this whole topic. We first had the architect meeting, and that was brought out to you as an informative meeting. Let you know what the architects felt, what they designed, get their opinion on how things looked. We did not take any action at that meeting because we wanted you to have time to think about it. It wouldn't have been fair if we would have had the architects give their presentation and then we sat here and voted. We wanted you to have time to think it over. We had the second meeting, which was our exchange meeting. A lot of people were upset because they were not allowed to speak at that meeting about the position of the theater at Lakeview. That was not done to be mean, nasty, whatever. That was done to try to get one set of questions answered, and then we had a special meeting for the other set of questions. We would have been here till 6 o'clock if we'd have put them both together, and it would have gotten very convoluted. I heard everybody. I don't know if you noticed at exchange meetings, I take notes. I have everybody's name, everybody's membership number, and a synopsis of what they said. I wish I'd have brought it with me, but I didn't. After that meeting, we have a board meeting, and we go over every single thing that's said at those meetings. So we do listen, we do discuss it, we do care. So for anyone that thinks we're not listening, I'm sorry, you're wrong. We may not agree, but we have listened. Thank you.
Thank you. Chris?
So I agree with Anita, we listened. The question is, what would I do to avoid the issue that we faced at that specific meeting? And I'm going to assume it's the special session that's being referenced. Me as a board member, I can only speak for myself. I've been soul searching and assessing my role in the board meeting. I've been playing over, going back to the video, listening to everything everybody said. I've been making notes, and I've been analyzing and researching different things that were brought up. I've spent a lot of time trying to understand some things where I may have some knowledge gaps, so I've been doing that. What I can do to avoid that happening again is to be sure that I continue to divorce my emotions from my decision-making process, and that I pay close attention, really close attention to what's being said. I also take notes. And in this specific instance, I literally have been having a come to Jesus talk with myself. For those of you that know what those are, it's where you sit in a manager's office and they read you the riot act. And I'm having that with myself. So I want you to know I have heard you. I have listened. And I am assessing and thinking carefully about what happened in that board meeting. And I can only speak for myself.
Okay, thank you. Next question.
Because so many in the community don't come to meetings like this, would you support changing our governing documents such that big issues similar to the PAC, Mountain View, large dollar expenditures, purchases of buildings, would be put to a vote of the membership, much like when we vote in a federal or a state election, we have propositions that we vote on? Would that not be more fair and take the burden off of all of you for making the decision if we opened it up to the public? That's my question.
Okay, that was like a...
Do you understand? My question is, would you support changing the governing document so that the members can vote individually and not have to come to a 5-hour meeting and stand in line and wait for 100 people to speak?
Okay. Yeah, so that's what the membership meetings are about. Okay, so let's just go ahead and answer the question, sir. We need to go about this question first of all. Sorry. Okay, so let me find out where I left off. All right, Anita, you get to answer that one first.
To answer your question, I'm going to say no, and I'll tell you why I'm saying no. First of all, I don't have enough background what that would mean. I don't want to change our articles. I don't want to change our organization if it means we are going to be under a different organizational structure that could cause us to lose our age overlay, could cause us to put us in a different tax bracket where we're suddenly paying school taxes. There are a lot of things to consider, and for me to just come out and say, yes, I would be in favor of that, I can't do that.
Okay, thank you, Anita. John.
I think I'd have to agree with Anita on this one, that I don't know what the other side of the issue is. I've heard yours, which is very nice. You pointed out what you wanted to see, but before you say, yeah, I will do that, I think I owe it to everybody to find out what's the other side, what's the downside to it. And I don't know that much about all our articles of incorporation and the procedural of it, and that may take effect too, whether we could do it. But I would just like to know more about it before I actually made a decision on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike?
Well, yes. I think I mean, we already have a member exchange, right, where all 32,000 members are invited. So why couldn't we put a process in place to ask the members, how do you feel about things? Again, I'm the communication freak, right? I'm like, what is the pulse of the community? So why wouldn't we try to put a system in place, the mechanisms, the bylaws? I mean, we'd have to do a little research how to do it, but we need the input from the members. I mean, one of the things that makes this job so difficult is you are sitting here as one of 9 trying to protect the corporation and at the same time trying to serve the members and trying to grow the community. So I'm all for anything we can do to get more feedback from the members.
Thank you. Rick?
Thank you. I'm just kind of browsing through the articles of incorporation on my phone because I thought I remembered reading something about having members vote. So without having the document to back up, I would say I'd be open to that. We should have a discussion about it. If there's a legal issue, let's discuss it and find out. My frustration, to be honest with you, is you get so, I've heard from what I count, or from what I remember, that we get like 2,500 votes for board positions. And it's like, we got over 30,000 people, and the rec center board running, there's like 2,500 people that make the decision. The more we can get people involved, the better it is. So, yeah, if we could get people going, but again, we have to have the discussion about it because what's the cost to change those? There's attorney fees, all of that. Will we actually create a benefit, or we do spend a bunch of money and then nobody shows up? So again, the more input, the better. I'm a big fan of that. But to just arbitrarily say, yeah, I would say I'd have to check into that, but it should be a discussion point.
Okay, thank you. Chris?
So my answer is very simple. Yes, I am open to looking into and researching the feasibility of doing something like that. Just that simple.
Okay, thank you. Tom?
Well, I think there's been some good dialogue already on that, and the fear expressed of unintended consequences strikes or resonates with me. And then I also wonder about, okay, well, what would the dollar amount be that would be the cutoff? Would it be 5 million? Would it be 10 million? 5 years from now, should it be 15 million? That's something that we'd have to kind of reason through. And should it be a vote of 50%? Should it be 2/3? I mean, there's lots of questions that you would have to go. Certainly people, when they try to pass bond issues or other things in municipalities, there are all kinds of rules that have to go or in effect when those votes take place. So it's not necessarily very straightforward, but there's no reason why you shouldn't at least be open to the possibility of exploring that. But at the moment, that's not the way we are, and we have to deal with what structure we have and do the very best we can.
Okay, thank you. Next question.
Milt Lepsak. I hope you'll indulge me for 10 or 15 seconds of preamble. In the last 2 years, I've seen the board do much more efficient and responsible action than in the previous 8 years that I've been here. My wife and I are property owners in Phase 1. We've been there for 10 years. I've been very frustrated with the lack of action that's been taken on the Mountain View renovation. And I have a very simple question. Do you have any suggestions for streamlining the process for facilities planning? That's as simple as I can make it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, Chris, you get the first shot at that one.
So I think we need to plan sooner. Right now, what we're doing is we're planning, okay, so we're planning, let's use Lakeview as an example. It's on the schedule for 2030. We're not looking at doing a master plan until 2028. Up until recently, we didn't even have that date. We literally just came to it as we came to it. So I think having the long-range plan, having the 10-year PIF forecast, having the annual budget and the 5-year plan and it all melding together will allow us to start being more planful, which should, by default, streamline the process. Because if we have a plan and everybody's in agreement with the plan, then the next logical step is to allocate the money, and the next logical step is to do the work. Right now, we spend a great deal of time talking about the plan. So I think that is where we need to start. We need to start creating actionable plans to be able to be prepared for when our facilities need work on them.
Okay, thank you. Mike?
One of the frustrations that I feel is what this gentleman's talking about is we spend all this time, Mountain View is a most recent example. The Mountain View elements were created and decided on based on the input from the people that live in that part of town. The gymnasium, the theater, tennis courts, what all we were going to try to do. I believe pickleball courts, there was 16 or 20 of them going to be. We've already touched on the new board carrying forward the promises, if you will, or commitments from the previous board. And I really think that's something that we need to work on, we need to figure out, is this process of a new board comes on and a member or two hasn't, I mean, I don't even know whatever happened to the gymnasium at Mountain View. There used to be a bunch of basketball guys running around, they wanted a gymnasium. My approach was, we can afford it, it makes sense, that's what the members want. It gives us another amenity other than duplicating something from somewhere else. And all of a sudden, in the blink of an eye, it all goes away, the whole thing, $400,000 that we spent with CCBG, I think were the letters, is flushed down the toilet. Nobody ever talks about that anymore. And now we've spent another 2 years talking about Mountain View, and I'm not dissing the effort that was made by the board trying to figure it out. I mean, a lot of people put on a lot of good, hard hours into figuring it out, but here we are again. I mean, now so I think one of the challenges for the board and for the future is to develop a process to streamline the design decisions.
Rick?
Yeah, there's two things I like. One is strategic planning, the other one's efficiency. And to go back to one of the questions that was asked before, as a board, if you're strategic planning and you're going to address an issue and you get all the information together and you come up with the best possible plan and there's a consensus, then you move forward as efficiently and effectively. That would go back then to, do you change a plan if you're a new board member? If the circumstances, the cost, none of that's changed, then just keep moving on that plan. To rethink stuff can bring inefficiencies and can raise cost. So the essential part is to have that plan well-developed, well-defined, well-honed, and then efficiently put it in process.
Thank you. Tom?
Well, honestly, that's a great question. Streamlining the process. I mean, it's like, mom and apple pie. Who would be against streamlining processes and being more efficient? Yet, if there's anything we kind of heard tonight or this afternoon, it's been, well, maybe we moved too fast. Maybe there wasn't enough time for people to really understand what was happening with the proposal on the PAC. So there's this constant balancing of, did you get enough input? Did you not? Can we ever get moving forward? Is it too fast? So, I mean, I certainly am sympathetic to the concern that can't this process be streamlined so we can make a decision and move forward? And I certainly want to at least, I don't know if I want to streamline the process, but I certainly would prefer to have a process that is well-structured and well-documented so we all know what steps need to be done, in what order, in what time frame, so that when we do make a decision, we have a community's decision. The downside to that was Mike maybe was just alluding to is boards change. And so we had that question earlier about would you support a previous board decision? And that comes into play all the time. So that's kind of perhaps a weakness of our structure, but maybe it's a strength at the same time, that you're able to revisit these a little bit, and if there's a decision that needs to be modified, you got a chance to do that. But I think process and procedures so that we all know how this thing goes through the voting process so that when we make decisions, we're able to do this.
Thank you, Tom. John?
Yeah, when I was in the Army, there was a big downsizing, if you remember, in the late 80s, early 90s. And then shortly afterwards, we had 9/11, and we were hurting. We jumped too quickly. I was on the board for Fort Ord, California, and they ended up cutting out the entire Fort Ord, along with many other bases. And the big learning curve that came out of that is be careful how quickly you run, because you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. And I think Tom and Mike and everybody's alluded to the fact we all agree as expeditiously as possible, but with caution. And that would be my whole point to it. I've lived through something that was kind of a mistake. We were wrong. And I wouldn't want to see that again. I think it's a great thing here, and we just make it simpler, maybe a little quicker, and be cautious. Thank you.
Thank you. Anita, and just so everybody knows, this is the last answer for this round. So remember, we'll go into when else we're having another candidate session. Go ahead, Anita.
Process. Yes, process is important. We had a board that, I'll give you Mountain View as an example, went through the process and developed Mountain View. And unfortunately, it came out a little more than we could afford. So the next board came on and said, we can't do that, we can't afford that. Our members can't afford that, so let's look at it again. So they did. And they came up with a SAC committee, which I was on. And we had representatives from, off the top of my head, I'd say 25, 30 people involved, maybe more. And everybody had their input, and the water aerobics people came in, and the water volleyball came in, and the dancers came in, and community representatives were there. And we all got together, and we didn't have a consensus, but we had a general, I think, pretty good agreement on what we thought should be done. There was a group of people that thought something else should be done, and I respect that. Everybody has an opinion, and I respect their opinion. That's kind of where we came to on this board that I'm on now, that we kind of went with that plan, although that plan had a glitch in it from another group. And that's how we got where we are. And in my mind, what happened is we are not contractors, we are not architects, we are not the professionals. So we went out to the professionals and said, we need help. We can't seem to.
Okay, that's it. Okay, sorry. All right, so we do have for the next half hour an opportunity for the candidates to mix and mingle, and you can ask some questions with that. I really want to thank all the candidates for taking the time to answer the questions. It goes for 2 hours, ma'am. The next opportunity is this Wednesday, November 20th, from 6 until 8, with, again, a 30-minute opportunity afterwards to meet the candidates. Okay, so just so you know, absentee ballots may be requested starting this Friday, November 22nd. You can call the corporate office at 623-561-4600. Hold on a second. Steve, please. 4600 to have one mailed or stop by and pick one up. You'll need your member card, the one with the photo, and you can only pick up your own, so you can't pick up your spouse's. Online voting begins Monday, November 25th, and there is a sheet with instructions on how to do that on the back table if you want to do it online. Walk-in voting will be Tuesday, December 10th from 8 to 4 in the Lakeview Social Hall number 2. I want to thank you all for attending. If you haven't had a chance, grab a bunt on your way out and have a nice afternoon.
This is a copyrighted production of the Recreation Centers of Sun City Incorporated and is intended for the sole purpose of informing our Recreation Center members. Any duplication, copying, transmission, broadcast, or use, including electronic and social media, is strictly prohibited without the prior written consent from the Recreation Centers of Sun City Incorporated. Thank you for watching.